We're here at VMware Explore 2023 with another great customer story. We're talking vSAN, we're talking VxRail, and John, we're doing it with a great company, actually, New Belgium Brewing. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I've been at New Belgium for a little over 8 years now. But yeah, pretty cool place to work.
Yeah. John, have you sampled their products before?
I might have heard of Fat Tire, Tripel, a couple of Citrus Rescue. Yeah, there's a couple things. Voodoo Ranger, I think, is pretty popular these days. But
Yeah, because we could talk VxRail, we could talk vSAN, or we could just talk about, which is the most popular
talking about beer.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think there's already 400,000 beer podcasts. I think that niche is well covered, but
pretty well saturated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. But the question I have here is, people may have been to their local, brewery, or done the tour or whatever, seen some things. What are you using compute for,
Yeah, so kind of a mixed bag, right? We have some major production sites that are also shared with office spaces. So those clusters tend to be generally VxRail with vSAN powering those. So now our next foray is, as we're growing and we need more production space, we're acquiring sites that are unmanned. So we need to have that scalability, that ease of lifecycle management for our growth. So trying to make sure that as we do that, we pick a platform that can grow with us for our demands. So that really pushed us towards VMware and vSAN and VxRail as a solution.
Well, it's nice you have a repeatable platform, because it sounds like you've got kind of a standard template of services you need to provide, file print to the users in the office, and then whatever type of control applications you need for the environment.
Yeah, so a lot of that at the site level for production manufacturing, right, is control systems. So opening, closing valves, automating the process, collecting that data and turning it around quickly. So those folks running the operation can not throw out, 100 hectoliters of Fat Tire if something goes wrong. So trying to make sure that we're making those adjustments along the way to give you guys, hopefully, the product that you love and keep buying, right?
So this is kind of cool, because a lot of, when I think about control systems historically, I largely think about looking at real-time sensor data, temperature this, on a chemical plant or any type of manufacturing system.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, we have rules, if this, do that, and just be able to react quickly. Storing lots of data and keeping that data seems to be more of a newer trend within that industry, or trying to, I guess outside of some compliance reasons and things, it seems there's a lot more kind of activity with that data. Can you go into a little more of what you're doing with that data?
Sure, yeah. Beer inherently is a food and beverage product, right? So some of that we need to maintain for batch numbers if something would need to be recalled, something like that. And then also, lots of times we may brew a certain beer, shelf it for a while, and then come back to it and say, hey, there were certain elements of that beer that we liked. Do we remember what the point, what the temperature was whenever we were brewing that?
Oh, wow.
Did we dry hop it before or after? Did we move it into a different vessel and then re-ferment it? So, trying to keep all of those data points to be historical to go back on. It can be helpful.
While testing it would impact your memory. So you gotta
slowly start forgetting some of the stuff you did. So don't rely on memory for that.
But this is something. It's there's so many different unique data points of the ingredients and the process and the temperatures and the times and all of that.
Yep.
And also there's a lot between sitting there and keeping a notebook, I guess, is how this would have been done back in the day, or journaling it, but having it a much more repeatable process.
Oh, for sure. When we started, it was all Excel sheets and stuff like that. So I think as you move from a smaller brewery to a larger brewery like us, it's all about economies of scale and getting your supply chain going and making those little adjustments that can save time, right? The can line, can it run 550 cans a minute? Could we get it to run 570 if we moved things, or if we ran them in different order and do the same product, right? Really dialing in all of those little pieces that, supply chain optimization.
Wow.
So vSAN just came out with a new version, vSAN 8 Update 2, offering new features like vSAN Max.
Yep.
I'm sure you guys, I think you already mentioned that you guys are using Express Storage Architecture.
Yeah, so we just started with our newest VxRail cluster. We acquired a site in Daleville, Virginia that was part of, if you remember back in the day, the little Ballast Point transaction went through. They were purchased for about $1 billion. So This was one of their sites initially. So that actually went to Constellation Brands, and then we purchased them. The interesting thing about that is, being a new cluster, it's probably easiest to test it there, and it's one of our smaller ones. But the interesting thing there is alcohol laws vary a ton by state to state. So one of the biggest challenges for us is not always the tech, it's making sure we hit all of those license transition, legal hurdles, compliance hurdles. So we actually were in a unique position where, in acquiring that site, the folks that were there decided to stay on. They love our benefits, so we really appreciate that. We got all of them, except one decided to retire. I don't know if I can blame them on that. But they were used to making those type of IPA-heavy beers that are in line with what Ballast Point made and what we make now.
Yeah, Sculpin and those things.
So that was super helpful. The challenge there was we had about a window of like a day to 48 hours where we had to build the entire network in tandem with their existing network to go from their ERP to our ERP. So if you can imagine having production stop for like 24 hours at that site before we were like, let's go, we got to spin it back up on our hardware.
Oh, wow. So there's like, they drained the beer in their tanks and you all filled it up with your stuff, like you flush it or like...
And even on top of that, right, they finished the brewing that they were going to do on their ERP, and it was like, hurry up and print all those pallet tags and license plates and stuff for stuff that's coming out of their ERP, swap it over, import all of that into our system, and start
you're
running
literally
it
changing to a different recipe and like on top of all this while changing to your company. I worked with some like companies who did M&A in the past, and they would buy up tons of small companies, and we had like a kind of a team who would swoop in and be like, okay, here's your new PCs, here's your AD, all that. Yeah. But trying to do that while maintaining product shipments and starting the new product line, like, because you technically have to change this stuff. Like, you can't just like relabel their beer. So
and legality-wise, it needs to come out of their ERP till we took over the license. And then at that point, it cannot come out of their ERP. It has to come out of ours. So it was a unique set of challenges, but I do really like that. You have a finite deadline. The team's got to band together. We got to all figure it out together.
Pre-stage it all in the appliance model is nice for drop-in, do that stuff. So.
Absolutely. And for us, we were actually initially looking at the ruggedized version of VX Rail.
The XR4000, I think.
Yeah, VD4000, I believe. Yeah,
that thing looks
just
cool.
In case we had to put it on the shop floor, because this site didn't have a server room that had air conditioning or anything like that. So quickly, our leadership team said, the projections of what we're going to need in the next couple of years, I think we need to get a full cluster. We need to get air conditioning installed and have that.
Get a mini split out there.
So I think that's a beauty of those solutions within VxRail and vSAN is that can just easily scale up, right? Nice. If you decide what works for us today may not work for us in 3 years, if all things go well, right?
That's good.
Yeah, so you being a VMware customer, attending obviously VMware Explore, obviously people come here to learn and to look for inspiration for future projects and try to figure out what's best for their company. I'm curious, were there any takeaways from you this week at VMware Explore that you might take back to your company and try to put into production maybe?
For sure, yeah. I think there's been a lot of great information, a lot of new products that are super interesting. For us, we've always been an on-premise first company. There's just, in manufacturing, right, there's just workloads that we would never run in the cloud. Yeah. We wouldn't risk running brewery automation things and stuff that would maybe leave a valve open and hurt someone if the site connectivity went down for some reason.
Control systems generally have to be local for safety reasons.
So for us, we haven't really needed to leverage a ton of the different cloud tools, but we happen to be in Microsoft's ERP Dynamics 365, so we had to go to the cloud for them.
Well, it's cloud smart, picking the things that make sense and running hybrid cloud, running stuff on-prem for the rest.
But some of the tools that have been presented today of like VMware on Azure or software to go between them, that's gonna suddenly for us become very relevant, right? Yeah. And the next thing for us, obviously, is probably more M&As. So if that would happen, just how do we get them onto our platform? How do we get them within our...
Be able to use the HCX, move them in, that type
into
of stuff.
our infrastructure plan going forward. So I think a lot of the announcements have been really enabling there. And then I think, there's just a lot of exciting stuff around AI and machine learning and stuff that, everyone's interested in hearing about that and knowing, like, where do I start with that?
Yeah. I'm interested in how that I'm just thinking out loud here, but like it'd be interesting to see how you could apply that like into your data set and having like a private AI
Or beer recipes, AI Ranger.
Right.
And how do you make this beer taste better? Can we improve on fat tire? Based on this information.
And I think there's going to be a massive supply chain benefit there,
Sure.
right? Of like, hey, how can we optimize this? How can we make this faster, get it out the door faster, get more
Visibility
more
to
cans
that
out,
data
more
everywhere.
kegs, what have you, more bottles. So
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Yeah, that's really good. You'll have to come back and let us know if, in fact, you start to incorporate that.
yeah, I'll come back and go, good news, we've got it all figured out.
You better bring a half barrel, so we'll see you then.
Yeah, certainly. Last question for you would be did you bring any samples for John and I?
I did not. I apologize. There's a lot of weird rules about convention centers and alcohol and three-tiered systems and whatnot, but that is the best part about my job. If something goes wrong, the office is right above the bar, right? I can just take my laptop down to the bar and pour a beer, and we'll figure it out.
I like it.
Like it.
Awesome. All right, Adam, thanks for joining us, man, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.